This meeting is being recorded.
Good evening. Welcome. It's 5:30 and I'm calling the February 7th, 2023 meeting of the Historic Site Preservation Board to order. May we please have the roll call?
Yes, Madam Chair Hawk,
Present.
Vice Chair Nelson,
Present.
Member Miller,
Present.
Member Hanson,
Present.
Member Rosendahl.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. May we please have the staff report on the posting of the agenda?
Yes, the agenda for this meeting was posted for public review at the City Hall bulletin board on the west side of Council Chambers and the Planning Department counter in accordance with the city policies.
Does the board have any revisions to the agenda? Any revisions? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the agenda? Motion? Okay. I have a motion by Vice Chair Nelson and a second by Member Hanson. Is there any discussion on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes 5-0. Okay. So this time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Historic Site Preservation Board on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Although the Historic Site Preservation Board values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the posted agenda. There will be 3 minutes assigned for each speaker. Testimony for public hearings will be taken at the time of the hearing a little later in the meeting. Staff, has anyone requested to comment on a non-public hearing item or an item that's not on today's agenda?
No, we have not heard anyone from the public wishing to speak at this time.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, there are no members in the audience who have their hands raised.
Okay. All right. So seeing no speakers, we will proceed to the consent agenda. Are there any revisions to the minutes of the meeting of January 3rd, 2023? Any revisions or corrections, anyone? Okay. Vice Chair Nelson?
Yeah, we're talking about approving the minute, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I have a few small items. Thank you. On page 4-5, under item 5A, meeting format and time. I would like to add that along with members Hanson, Miller, and Rosendahl, Member Nelson, myself, was also in support of continuing the virtual meeting format. And 3 lines down, I was also in support of moving the meeting time from 5:30 to 5, and had originally made that suggestion. And then under item 5B, Preservation Matters Symposium, just to keep things accurate, the name of the symposium is "The Mirage Becomes an Oasis, Water and Tourism History." The word history is missing there in Greater Palm Springs. And that's all I've got, so thank you.
Okay, so very good. Thank you for those additions. So now may I have a motion to approve the minutes of January 20, of January 3 with those additions?
I move.
Okay, so
I'll
we,
second.
okay. So I'm going to abstain from the vote because I wasn't present at the meeting. So so we have a motion by Mr. Rosenau and a second by Mr. Miller. And is there any discussion about the minutes other than what we've done? Okay, seeing none, I will call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I abstain, and then any opposed? Okay, so the motion passes 3-0 with one abstention. Let us proceed to agenda item 2A, public hearings. An application by David Howard.
Wasn't that vote for with
Oh,
one abstention?
isn't it 3-4? Oops, did I miscount? There's 5 of us and I abstained. Boy, you're smart. You're right on top of it. Thank you. Thanks so much. So an application by David Howard and Ann Lai for historic designation of the Hutchins residence located at 1177 East Mesquite Avenue. So may we please have a staff report on this item?
Yes, give me just a moment as I pull up the presentation. All right, are you able to see the presentation screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, for the record, Sarah Yoon, Historic Preservation Officer and Associate Planner for the City of Palm Springs. The first item before you today is an application for historic designation of 1177 East Mesquite Avenue, also known as the Hutchins Residence. The HSPB case number for this project is 144. And we'll step straight into the proposed review. The property is a single family home. It's in the R1C residential zone district. This is an interior lot that has street facing frontage on Mesquite Avenue. And the owners of the home submitted an application requesting for Class 1 landmark designation. We love to start with historic photos. The record indicates that the home was designed by architects Donald Wexler and Richard Harrison shortly after their partnership was formed in 1952. The house was constructed by the developer Robert C. Higgins during what was known as the post-World War II context, which spans from 1945 to 1969. And at this time, the city of Palm Springs was experiencing a population boom of wealthy seasonal residents, which created the need for residential development. When we look closely at this image, it's a historic photo roughly dating from 1954. We see the prominent modernist design concepts seen throughout this image. There's simple forms and materials, emphasizing the horizontality of the structure and the integration of the natural desert landscape. Something you can note here through this image is the walls you see are essentially freed from the bearing weight of the roof. The glazing and openings are used to allow light and air into the space. And of course, you see the beautiful mountains in the back. On January 30th, HSPB and staff did conduct a site visit to the property and observed the existing conditions as it stands today. Over the years, we see that there were many changes that have been made to the site itself and also to the building. This does include the enclosure of the original carport, which you see on the image to the left. We have two garage doors that have enclosed the original carport. And the original courtyard, although it was done very early on, before the Hutchins actually moved in, has also been closed in. And we see large concrete pavers that have changed the original desert landscape design and the application of modern exterior veneers to the facade of the building. We do note that the original horizontality of the form has been maintained, and the walls that we see with the stump walls are still visible. Based on the 7 criteria for historic designation, staff finds that criteria 5, which identifies the resource as a work of a master designer / architect that had a significant impact to their field is met. The works of Wexler and Harrison continue to be have lasting impressions on the design world, and their designs are celebrated. And it's often identified as the desert modern style of architecture that we see in Palm Springs. And so we find through the staff analysis that criterion 5 is met. And for the analysis, we also look at the integrity of the resource itself. The overall feeling of that 1950s single-family home built in the desert modern style is still present, but staff does find that the various alterations have compromised the home's original design integrity. And what is there today is a reflection of changes of time rather than a single distinctive period. Here's a list of the character defining features that you see in the staff report. These are associated with the home. It still is comprised of the flat roof with the thin horizontal fascias, exposed beams and overhangs around the perimeter of the home. Large expanses of glazing still remain. And the original slump stone block walls are still incorporated in that unique way that you see in the home. When we are looking at the classifications for a historic resource, our ordinance does distinguish class sites, class 1 sites and class 2 sites. Both are considered historic. A class 1 site is seen as a site that possesses exceptional levels of integrity. In the case of the Hutchins residence, staff finds that the resource meets the integrity findings, but some of them miss the mark on important categories such as integrity of design and setting. According to the code, if the site meets some of the criteria and shows a certain level of integrity, it may qualify for a class 2 designation. And with that, staff's analysis of the report and the site concludes that the home meets the qualifications and criteria to be designated as a class 2 site with historic merit. The owners, of course, have submitted this designation request for a class 1 status. Staff does recommend that HSPB adopt the resolution number 144, recommending City Council designate the Hutchins residence as a class 2 site. With that, I'm happy to take any questions related to the staff memo or the staff report. If anyone has any questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Sarah. Does the board have any questions for staff? Any questions? Member Hanson?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm with staff and our large audience tonight that a class 2 is afforded the same benefits as a class 1 resource, for example, to take advantage of the Mills Act.
As the ordinance is written now, yes, class 1 and class 2 have the benefit of applying for the Mills Act contract.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Nelson, did you have a question? Vice Chair Nelson?
Vice Chair Nelson, you're muted.
Unmute Nelson.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to request that Sarah close the screen so we can see everybody again.
Oh, sure.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, were there any other questions for staff? Any other questions? Anyone? Okay. So seeing no further questions of staff, I will open the public hearing. Does the applicant wish to speak?
Sure, we're happy to introduce ourselves. I'm David Howard. This is my husband, On Lee. We appreciate all of the help here this evening. We're also have our architect, Susan Sequoia Jensen, on the line tonight. She's ill, but joining nonetheless. Those of you who know her diehard work ethic. We've been working with Susan ever since we found this house to try to figure out how to take it back to its original glory. I apologize to all of you for seeing it in its current state. We are actually working at least on the interior to figure out what we can do to help correct a lot of the changes that have been done. And we still find it a fabulous house, and we look forward to preserving the house and sharing it, frankly, with the public in Palm Springs through various events, and are very excited to have it designated to ensure that the next owner will also be required to preserve it as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Howard and Mr. Lee. Are there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak in public comment on this item? Anyone else on public comment? Okay, so seeing no other speakers on public at this time, I will close the public hearing. The action is now with the board. Are there any comments or further discussion of the board? I would like to just begin saying thank you to Mr. Howard and Mr. Lee for your conscientious efforts and your interest in proceeding with the preservation and the conservation of the home. And I understand that you're just going to be beginning work, actually. And we're so delighted to know of your interest and dedication. And I wanted to thank you. Do you somewhat have a timeline?
We do. We're actually starting the project in April. Is that right? Yeah. Starting it in April, and we hope to be finished by October, which sounds like a long time, doesn't it? But we're eager to try to do what we can.
Very good. Good. Thank you. So are there other comments? Rosenau, Member Rosenau.
Yeah. As a former owner of a Wexler, I'm already biased to Wexlers, and it was a joy to see this one in its state as it is. And I am a proponent of the application. So if city staff recommends Class 2, I'm fine with that. Good job, and I look forward to seeing what you guys create down the road here in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my question is for the owners and or Susan Sequoia Jensen. I'm just curious, because it's hard to tell from the photos in the report, whether the original exterior at the time of the property being built contained any of Don Wexler's original signature board and batten, which was a vertical, almost beadboard, which he used on almost every residence he built, because we don't see it there today. And I was just wondering if it was there to begin with, or if you don't have any evidence to support that.
I don't have any knowledge of what was done at the time. We're actually so obsessed with this house that we hired a private investigator to find the kids who grew up there, and we interviewed them. They were very surprised to hear from us. I should ask them because I've been focused more on how to correct the interior and understand how they used the house. So I don't know, but I will ask. I will ask.
Wonderful,
Uh,
thank you.
I will weigh in too. This is Susan Sequoia Jensen. And I don't believe there was the board and batten detail. Unfortunately, we do not have original drawings, which is pretty common with the early Wexler Harrison, and this was one of their first. So we don't have that documentation, but it was really, really an interesting discovery to see a similar home in the Sunmore tract that had the same beam with the Celotex insulation instead of the tongue and groove ceilings. So we've continued to explore and discover, and our goal is to bring it back as closely as possible to the original design intent. And so that's our goal. I wish we could have a few more character defining features in order to take it into that class 1 category versus class 2. I wish there was actually a class in between the two because of the definitions of them. But as long as we are getting this incredible resource designated, I think that is the goal amongst our team.
Great. Thank you, Susan. Just a couple more things. I agree with everything you mentioned. So thank you for that. And the good news is if it gets the class 2 designation, you could always reapply later on for a higher classification once you've completed your work. And just wanted to see, I'm sure Susan's already taken care of this, but if you've had an opportunity to visit the original Don Wexler family home, granted it came much later, I believe, than this one, but it would be a good field trip to be able to see that for your future reference. And also kudos on trying to find the original family, because they more than likely will have photos of them standing outside the front of the house, and you'll be able to see exactly what those materials were. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any other comments or questions or discussion on this matter? Hi, look at that cute gal. She's a doll.
This is Morgan, our daughter.
Wonderful, wonderful. So super. Okay. So looking like we don't have any other discussion on this item, may I please have a motion? Okay. Member Nelson, are you making the motion? Or Mr. Rosenau? Speak up.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Rosenau and a second by Member Nelson. Is there any discussion? Any discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes 5-0. Thank
Madam
you.
Chair,
Yes,
I want to just interject. Does the motion make the findings that were outlined in the staff report to support your designation as class 2? Okay, that's all I wanted to add for the record.
thank you for clearing that. Okay, so there is no unfinished business. So we will proceed to new business agenda item 4A. And this is review for potential redesignation of a class 4 site to a class 1 or 2 historic resource initiated by an application by Zuma Tamresk, requesting approval to demolish the dwellings located at 2 addresses, 827 North Arkelia Road and 50 Tamrisk Road. So may we have a staff report on this, please?
Yes, give me just 2 seconds. We're flying through today. Screens set up here.
Not always the case. And I believed we all visited the site last week. So we did see the site in person, walked around the two addresses, saw that quite thoroughly.
Are you able to see my screen in full view?
Not yet.
Okay, let's see.
There we go. We see it.
Okay, is that good?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, moving right along. 827 North Aquila Road and 1050 Tamarisk Road. This is case number 3.4358. It is a request for full demolition of a class 4 site. The applicant is before you today with a request to demolish 5 existing structures on 2 connecting parcels. If you look on the left-hand side, you can see the numbers identifying the 5 structures. We have this lot here and this lot here connected together. It is a parcel that is located in the R1C residential zone district, and HSPB did conduct that site visit not too long ago. Here's some photos that we took at the site of the structures and their current condition. According to the county records, the structures were constructed in the 1940s, but they do display a nondescript style of architecture, as you can see in the images. No significant information was uncovered during the research for the parcels. And the building permit records indicate that the homes on the Tamarisk parcel were once slated for demolition. And again, when we were on site, we were able to see the relationship of the buildings on the site, as well as kind of see with our own eyes, the owners currently dealing with break-ins and vandalisms and trespasses on both properties. When it comes to a full demolition of class 3 or class 4 sites, the code does require that application to be reviewed by the HSPB to see if the property qualifies for redesignation. In other words, if the property possesses exceptional historic significance, and in that case, the HSPB may issue a stay of demolition to start the designation process for the site to be a class 1 or 2. In reviewing the application and seeing the site, staff finds that the 5 structures on this site do not possess any exceptional qualities to warrant redesignation. The staff memo actually goes into a bit more detail outlining the analysis. And we don't believe that this merits, again, it doesn't merit redesignation. And according to our code, we do recommend that the HSPB take no action and to direct staff to administratively process the permits required for demolishing the 5 existing structures. At this time, the owner's position is also to request for demolition, and they are not seeking for historic designation of the site. It's kind of quick and sweet, but if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take those at this time.
Okay, any questions? Does the board have any questions to staff? Any questions? Okay, no questions. I see that Ms. Nasuji is present. Welcome. And I wanted to ask, would you like to share anything more about the project for board's consideration? We would welcome you to speak.
I really don't have much. I don't know if I mentioned to everybody because it was 3 separate groups, but we're not flippers. the family bought the property to develop as a family compound. So we're going to build probably 2 houses and 2 casitas, and it will stay in the family for a long time. So we hope to build something nice. My daughter and her partner are both architects, so they are really excited about designing this project. They just graduated from architecture school a few years ago. So
Wonderful.
yeah, we're happy to be in Palm Springs and hope to be there for a long time.
And your neighbors will be very happy too, I'm sure.
I think so.
We look forward to watching that development. Are there any other questions of the applicant or any comments? Vice Chair Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll try to keep it brief. Just some history for the record that I was able to find through searching old phone books, that all of the structures on these parcels were built by a man named Charles, aka Chad E. Shew, S-H-E-W-E. He was originally from Montana, first started coming to Palm Springs in 1918, moved here in 1935 when he built the first structure on the property. And that's because I found his obituary saying that he built in that tract, known as the Sophronia tract, around that time. And then he listed up that address, specifically 1054 Tamarack, beginning in 1941. And then he continues to be listed all the way until 1964, 1050, 1050 and a half, 1052, 1054, 1056, and 1058 Tamarack, with one mention of 1045 Tamarack, which would have been, I believe, across the street. You know, he came here from Montana. He was a realtor and a builder. So he is the historically significant person associated with those properties. And I just wanted to mention that for the record for proper documentation.
Thank you. I'm gonna research him. It's really interesting.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Nelson. We greatly appreciate all the time that you do in researching and checking every unturned stone. And we really appreciate that. You're amazing with the patience that you have to do that research.
My pleasure.
Yes, super. Thank you very much. So, are there any other questions or comments at all? Okay. Okay, seeing no further questions, may I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Vice Chair Nelson. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Member Hanson. Is there any further discussion on this project? Okay, yes. Mr. Lyon, unmute Mr. Lyon.
Member Nelson, please make the statement of your motion.
Yes, I was planning to do so. Thank you. So my motion is to follow staff recommendation that the HSPB take no action and allow the processing of demolition permit for the 5 structures on the 2 parcels. Is that correct? Great.
Good. Thank you. We'll have to be more attentive to stating the motions exactly. Thank you very much, Mr. Lyon. Okay, so let us proceed to agenda item 4B. This is an application by the city of.
Hold on.
What?
We need to do a vote.
See, I was worried about the motion. I'm sorry. I was moving right ahead. So thank you. Okay, was there any discussion about that motion that we corrected? Okay, seeing none, call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, the motion passes 5-0. Okay, rushing ahead, let us proceed to agenda item 4B, which is an application by the city of Palm Springs for possible historic designation of the Capture Tockwitz Resort Golf Course Clubhouse, located at 1885 Lawrence Crosley Road. May we please have a staff report?
Yes, so included in your packet, we would like to, so the Talkwitz Creek Resort Clubhouse by Hugh Kepner. We are working to get this to HSPB with the Historic Resources Report. It is in the process of being finalized. However, we would like HSPB to direct staff to go ahead and move forward with arranging the site visits and schedule the public hearing. We expect the report to be in very soon. We just want to make sure that we can get this moving along so we can get this on the HSPB agenda, hopefully in March. And so our recommendation is to direct staff to arrange site visits and to schedule a public hearing for HSPB's consideration of the application for historic designation of this site.
Okay, very good. Are there any questions for staff? Okay. Seeing no further questions, may I please have a motion?
I move to direct staff to arrange site visits and schedule public hearing.
Very good. Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Rosenau and a second by Member Miller. And is there any discussion on this motion? Yes, Vice Chair Nelson?
I'll just say I'm very excited about this one, and I think it's wonderful that the city is bringing forth this nomination, especially since we still have Mr. Chapter among us, and it's really one of the more exuberant works.
Very good. I agree. So, okay, now we're going to call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Let us proceed to discussions. Item agenda number 5A. A subcommittee for the 2023 Preservation Matters Symposium has been formed with 2 board members, Vice Chair Nelson and Member Hansen. Mr. Nelson, would you please report on the symposium planning?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So everything's moving right along. As everyone knows, the symposium is still scheduled for April 29th and 30th, Saturday and Sunday. And it will be at the Conference Convention Center, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., with the first hour being for registration and visiting organization tables and exhibits by the local school students of architectural models. We had our subcommittee meeting today, one of 2 that we're having in February, and we still have 2 more in March and 2 more in April before we finally put this event on. So everyone is working really hard on their respective areas, including Chair Happ, Member Hansen, and former Chair Dick Burkett, along with staff member Yoon and Lyon. And we're right where we need to be. We've got a lot of work to do in the next week or so. So we're working closely with city staff to get everything ready for the registration launch. And press release will be going out toward the end of the month. So unless anything or anyone has anything else to add, I think that's it.
Okay. Any other discussions, questions, or comments about the symposium? Well, thanks for everyone's hard work on that. Boy, it's a lot of work organizing it. Thank you. Okay, so next, may I ask staff report on the agenda item 5B, updates to the Mills Act contracts.
I wanted to take a quick moment to let the HSPB know that the city is embarking on updating the Mills Act contracts in terms of the processing and procedures related to the applications. We're taking a moment to make these updates so that we can be in compliance with the state level codes and the requirements. We want to make sure that we are doing everything we need to in terms of processing these Mills Act contracts as they come through. And so we are allotting about 3 months of time to devote to making these updates. We will keep HSPB up to date about the updates related to the procedures. In the meanwhile, in the 3 months, we have notified applicants, letting them know that we'll be holding off on accepting Mills Act contracts while the updates are in progress. And then we will notify them when we are complete of what the updates are, what more information we need, and what kind of changes have come from the updates. So we'll keep you posted. We just wanted to give you guys a heads up about what's going on. That information will be posted on our website, so applicants are aware. And if you run into anyone who has questions about the Mills Act contracts and the updates that we're working on, you can please feel free to direct them to me, and I'll go ahead and try and field those questions as best I can.
Good. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes, member.
I just had a question. Will the final changes come to the board, or they go right to city council?
So these are actually just updates to the procedures. We're not making changes in that capacity. We want to make sure we're in compliance. There are things that we are not taking in as part of the applications right now, and we want to remedy that. We want to make sure that we're doing the proper inspections that are required of Mills Act contracts that have not been being done. So we're just formalizing the procedures, really. So once that's done, we can provide the update to everyone, and all that information will be available online. It's not a process that will need to go to City Council for approval.
Okay, any other questions about the updates? Vice Chair Nelson?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Sarah, will these procedural changes make it more difficult, in simple speak, for people to qualify for the Mills Act, or is it not that cut and dry?
We'll keep you up to date on what the actual updates will look like. I mean, one example I can give right now off the bat is that we're not asking for a comprehensive list of improvements, capital improvements that are associated with the Mills Act. And those are details that should be collected. Some people might see that as it being different or more challenging than before, but again, we're bringing that into compliance. So it's a needed update.
Okay, great, thank you. And one more question. Currently, what is the timeline one can expect once they've applied for a Mills Act contract for it to be approved and executed, and how does that timeline compare to what it will become? Do you know?
I may have to defer to Mr. Lyon about that one in terms of the actual timeline. I know that we have a very extensive spreadsheet in tracking how these things are executed. There's a lot of back and forth related to signatures and sign-offs. So it can be quite extensive. And as far as I know, it's kind of case by case. It depends on how quickly we get a response back from the applicant proceeding with the process. I've heard of ones that are taking over a year just because of the back and forth, or somebody being out of the country and things like that. So it really seems to depend on the applicant themselves.
Okay.
Ken, do you have a more, if everything goes smooth, this is usually how long it takes for it to process?
Yeah, you've summarized it correctly. They seldom take a year, but they usually take several months.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Anything else about the Mills Act? Mills Brothers, Mills Act? Okay, so that completes today's agenda. Are there any comments from the board? Any board comments? Of course, Vice Chair Nelson.
Can't let it go, right? So today I brought to the attention of staff what I believe was a Class 3 property. I'm not sure if I'm 100% correct on that, but I have pointed it out to Chair Huff last week, I believe, and it's 275 Tamarick, which appears to be 1939 commercial dwelling, meaning multiple units, by Albert Frey, and also listed in Joseph Rose's book, Albert Frey Architect, which is kind of the go-to reference for his body of work. So staff replied to my email immediately saying that it was already on their radar. So I'm sure in the staff comments, if they have anything to say, they might fill us in if there's anything to fill in. That's all.
Okay, any other board comments before we move on to staff comments? Staff comments, please. Ken?
Sarah, may I start?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to try to share my screen. I want to bring to your attention a project that had come before the board several years ago. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. This is what has been known as the Crawford Apartments or the Village Inn. Back in 2019, the HSPB approved a project involving this site and the adjacent site, which is a Class 1 historic site called I believe it's Harlow Haven. This particular property is a hotel that was built about 1945, and the board approved a very extensive renovation and partial demolition of this old hotel. The project has now come through the building permit processing, and the applicant has had time to do some selective demolition, and they're finding that most of the existing structure is not salvageable. So as you're looking at these images, the top image, everything that you see to the left of the two-story portion was previously scheduled and is still scheduled for complete demolition in order to have the structure in place in order to build the open second floor terrace that you see. The portion of the structure that you see on the right side through some preliminary review, selective demolition inside, they're finding it to be of a similar problem. The project scope, as it was laid out for that particular wing, was that the entire interior of the property was gutted. That small little office area that you see right behind the Village Inn was to be demolished, and most of the front wall was being demolished in order to establish new openings, new doorways, new fenestration. So all that was about left was the east wall that you see there facing the street and the back wall. So staff is going to be processing administratively for this building to be completely taken down because its existing condition is not structurally stable enough for them to do the addition and the renovation. So there will be no change in the ultimate final appearance of this building. It is still owned and being processed for a substance abuse recovery center called Avalon Gardens. And so in the end result, we will see exactly what the board approved in the lower image. But I did want to make the board aware that you are going to see this entire building come down in order to get this new one built. So I wanted to just bring that to your attention. And then a second item is, I think I've mentioned to you the Bank of America building, City National Bank in terms of its historic name, is going through extensive renovations and restorations. They've run into, on that project also, a number of structural problems on the roof, which they are rectifying. You will be seeing going up probably after Modernism Week, temporary partitions across both the north elevation as well as the west elevation as they take on the project of replacing the glass and the glazing and adding structural support to the curtain wall on those two facades. So you will see the Bank of America building having temporary partitions going up. It will look like the building is being boarded up. It is not being demolished, but they do have to do that partition in order to keep the building secure while they replace that curtain wall. That's all I have to report. Thank you.
Wow, that was quite a lot of updating. so much for providing that information. As we drive by those properties, we'll be well informed. Okay, are there any other comments, discussions, anything else? Okay, yes, Vice Chair Nelson.
Thank you. Just to follow up with what Mr. Lyons said about B of A, was there any discussion with them about getting the exterior perimeter of the property as clean as possible in time for Modernism Week? And any luck with any kind of storyboards or signs in the windows explaining what exactly is happening? Because I know lots of visitors will be very inquisitive about that.
Well, it is really a construction site at this point, and we tend to let the owners and the builders do their thing. There was going to be, and there will be on the temporary partitions that go up, some explanation. I refer to them as the messages of pardon our dust. We're working to improve and restore the building. So once the partitions do go up, which I believe is going to be after Modernism Week, you'll see those notices. But at the time, right now, it's going to be in the condition that you see it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussions, comments? Okay, seeing no further discussions, this meeting of the Historic Site Preservation Board is adjourned to the meeting of Tuesday, March 7th at 5:30 p.m. Thanks to all for your participation today. So, goodbye.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.